Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Saturday. It is Saturday afternoon. We're doing a special update show just because it's been a hot minute, been traveling a little bit. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Big news coming out of the transfer portal. We got a big one coming. We're excited about that. 5-star tackle visiting. I was actually also in attendance for the Foundation's event. It was really interesting. It was really cool. I think that, we're going to keep raising money to get these kids in here because these kids all need money now to get the really good ones. So we're going to keep raising that money for that. So really good stuff. We're going to get into that. Going to bring Nevada back in. So we're going to have a fantastic show for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in today. As always, we're very grateful and thankful for you guys. If you can please give us a like for this content, that is always huge. Subscribe to the channel. Shout out where you're from in the comments. Those always boost our videos huge when you guys do that. We love seeing where you guys are from. And we're going to get right into it. Nevada, you broke a monster bit of news yesterday as a brother actually jumped into the portal of a current Ohio State Buckeye. Talk us a little bit about yesterday's kind of crazy day and breaking a very significant story, in my opinion, on Ohio State football this season.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before, about the possibilities of this. In fact, I think we'd kind of called this as almost a probability, but, Lorenzo Styles Jr. moving from from Notre Dame to Ohio State, changing positions as well, changing positions from wide receiver, where if people remember, he was the one that made that long catch and run, one of the first plays against the Notre Dame game. I think he hung about a 60-yarder on us or whatever it was. Moving to cornerback, position of need for Ohio State, coming to play with his brother, coming to play in the horseshoe, and very excited about it. I mean, this is a guy that, do I think he can help us this year? Maybe. Do I think he can help us next year? Probably. Can we ever have enough good cornerbacks? No. So, very excited about this get, and was happy to break the news. It was, like I said, a long time in coming, but it was exciting when it happened.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would never turn away a corner, a guy's a four-star-ish, high four-star athlete. Should have probably came here initially. Obviously went to Notre Dame. His younger brother, Sonny, obviously we all know is a phenom, 5-star, maybe the best athlete on the team right now. And, three things that I really am excited about is I think that it kind of, it energizes Sonny. Obviously Sonny doesn't need any more motivation because, he wants to be a 3-and-out guy, first-round type guy. But, having your older brother show up, I think is awesome. I think it's better for the Styles family. Mom and dad get to go to one stadium now. It's 20 minutes away. You get to watch both your sons on the same field that Lorenzo Sr. played on and was a great player on. So I think that's huge. I think that, for the Styles legacy, and again, this is like kind of, off in the distance, but you look like what happened when Justin Bourne came from Michigan, transferred down here. None of the Bournes had significant NFL careers, but they've made a fortune in the local Columbus market with multiple services. They just sold their grass groomers company. They've got a huge dumpster company. I mean, they really have killed it down here. And I think a lot of it was energized by Justin coming down and not being a Michigan guy anymore, becoming a Buckeye, and Zach's hit, obviously, against Devin Gardner. So I think that's something, again, that's kind of off in the distance. Obviously, everybody wants to play 10 years in the NFL and make a fortune in the NFL and never have to work again. But, if you want to live in Ohio and you want to have a legacy in Ohio, I think being a Buckeye is a huge help. I live that every day. I never take that for granted. And I love the fact that, everything that Ohio State football has done for my life is something I express pretty easily to a lot of people, including the Styles family. I think those guys are going to really do well with it. And third, we need corners. The first one, first point, him and Sonny together will be great. Second point, business. But third, we need corners. Our corner play, we had 0 interceptions at corner last year. I think we have talent. Obviously, I think Davidson Igbinosun is a guy that could be a 3-and-out, first-round pick type guy. He could be our lead dog superstar. But, I think it lights a little bit of a fire under Denzel and Jordan Hancock and some of these freshmen when you have an old head showing up, a guy that's played college football, and he scorched us on maybe the first play of the game or second play of the game against Notre Dame. So, again, I like it. Anytime you can bring a legacy home, Lorenzo Styles was a fantastic player, had a great NFL career, was on the St. Louis Rams team that won the championship with Orlando Pace and Kurt Warner and those types. So, I like it all the way around. Like, I love when these guys Like Richard McNutt, their sons are getting offered by Ohio State. Like it's something that everyone who has a son who played at Ohio State kind of dreams that their legacy kid can get the offer and be a Buckeye at some point. So for Lorenzo Jr., I think it's a no-brainer. I'm super excited about it. It was a great get by U Nevada. But I just said a lot of stuff. Do you have any counterpoints to that? Like I said, I don't see the downside. I mean, obviously you're probably gonna have to push a couple guys into the portal, which again that's going to happen every year now, guys, with the way the transfer portal is and how you can enhance your roster and improve the bottom part of your roster. Maybe the 78th through 85th scholarship guys. I think this is kind of how it is now, and I think that Lorenzo Jr. is a guy that's going to enhance our roster in a really nice way. But any counter thoughts to that, Nevada?
Well, first of all, you talk about the Bourne brothers, and you talk about Justin, you talk about Zach, and you forget. Oh yeah, Jacoby was the starting center for our national championship team.
Oh
So
yeah.
Jacoby, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Buckeye Scoop for the disc that was just handed to you by Mr. Barton. You were a fine center, and that run, the 85 yards to the heart of the South, could not have happened without your great leadership on the offensive line. So thank you, Jacoby. So
Yeah, and I will say that Jacoby is the smartest player I ever coached. Jacoby was an absolute genius on the field. So, and I in no way meant to slander my boy Jacoby because I think Jacoby is the smartest of the Bourne brothers, and you can print that. And Zach and Justin will laugh at me, and Mike will probably try to beat me up because he's a Michigan guy. But Jacoby was, I mean, I taught him the playbook in like 2 days, and he didn't. And he was like a computer. He was like one of these AI robots. So I love Jacoby. But go ahead and continue, Nevada.
yes. So again, so now that we're done with the boring disc, we're moving on to the. No, I think there's just no downside to a move like this. We've talked about the new reality of the portal, and in the portal, you've got to be constantly be. It's we've talked about it in like playing cards, where you get to keep throwing your cards in and get dealt new cards. And for Ohio State, it's just a chance to continue to upgrade and frankly, for some guys that just haven't played a lot in the spring game, don't really see a path to the field in the fall, it's a chance for them to kind of move on to greener pastures. But I think people have to understand, and this is where you'll hear this stuff from other sites. So like Ohio State's going to bring in 2 new starting tackles in the portal in the second portal season, and it's like that's the stupidest thing, and it's clearly a lie. And when you read that stuff, you just know it's a lie because there are 2 portal seasons. There's the first portal season, that's where you have a chance to get the prime guys. Okay. Then now we're in what we call the second portal season. You're going to get the fringe guys right now. You're going to get the guys that are moving on. You get the familial moves, the brothers, the other thing, but you're not going to get the A+ starting types of guys right now. And this is just not going to happen. So when you've got to kind of clear your mind when you think about the portal in terms of this, and Styles in this second portal thing is about as good a get as you're going to get. And for Ohio State, it's more depth. It's a guy. I mean, conceivably, he could even take a redshirt year and play 2 more seasons after that and have a chance to kind of prepare himself and really go to the league. But this is a high quality athlete, high character kid. And look, he was a starting wide receiver for Notre Dame last year. No reason to believe that he couldn't be a capable cornerback for us. So nothing but an upside for Ohio State all the way around.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that 2 starting tackles at this point in the portal, I can't see it. I haven't seen many tackles. I mean, I know the kid that went from Washington State to USC was serviceable, but it's not like he was some cinch first round Paris Johnson type of tackle. He's a guy that he would have been competing with Josh and with Donnie Jackson and with all the options that they have at tackle right now. And I think that it's really tough to say you're going to go find a tackle in the portal right now because if you want to be like really good at football, your ideal scenario if you're going to transfer is you're going to be in that first portal wave. Now, Lorenzo Jr., he's changing positions. It's a little bit different, a little bit more developmental, going from receiver to they just moved him to corner like this past week. Their spring game is actually today, so I'm sure he didn't dress for the game. I'm sure he's already out the door. But if you're a big time player like Dave Sinigmanosa and some of these guys, you want to get on campus as soon as possible so that you can get with the conditioning program, kind of get the lay of the land, and then learn the playbook. I mean, that's the biggest thing is some positions, man, like you're playing offensive line, playbook's pretty tough. I mean, you got to make sure you know it. You got to develop, chemistry between your guard, especially if you're playing tackle, and that's why you want to go through spring ball. Like if I was, a tackle that was at a smaller school and I wanted to go somewhere, I would want to make sure that I was there during spring, competing during spring. Because if you show up now, you better be like really, really good, or else you're going to be behind the eight ball because you might transfer in, you might not be able to beat out Josh Fryer, you might not be able to beat out Zen or Tigra or whoever, because those guys went through spring. They're going to get the screws put to them during summer conditioning. And like I said, I was a guy that I bounced around to like 5 different NFL teams, and every time I had to switch playbooks, I hated it because you get it down cold at one place, and then you have to change all the terminology. It's like learning a whole new language, and you have to do it on the fly, and it's very suboptimal for football. It's a different sport than baseball or basketball where guys can just kind of show up and assimilate a lot quicker. Football, it takes a lot of chemistry. It takes a lot of time. It takes time getting to know your coach, how your coach likes to coach you. Like there's a lot of things that it's beneficial to be here for during spring ball. And that's why, and again, if you say we did bring in two really good tackles, which I don't think two really good tackles are going to hit the portal, but if we did, how does that upset, Zen and Tigra and Josh Fryer and George Fitzpatrick? And how does that look in recruiting? If you go after a 5-star tackle, we're going to break one down here in a second. Is he going to say, well, I'd love to come here, but this year you brought in two portal kids and you push everybody down the depth chart and you push kids out the door that were competing for a spot. So they went from being second team to third team. And, there's a lot of unintended consequences that come with bringing in one guy in the portal, let alone multiple guys in the portal. Like you could bring in a Davison Igbinosin because J.K. Johnson took off and went to LSU. You kind of got to make that 1-for-1 swap, keep the depth chart where it is. But you start bringing in a bunch of people in the same room, you must really hate that room because the morale is going to be very low. These guys are human beings. How does it look in recruiting? How are schools going to use that negative recruiting against you? So there's a lot of different things that go into this portal stuff. It's not just like playing Madden and trading for the best tackles and, away we go. Nobody's upset by it. So, but no, I will be stunned if we bring in two tackles. I'd put it at about a 0% chance that happens, but I've seen crazier. Nevada, what are your odds for, since you're the gambling wizard, what are your odds that we have two portal starting tackles week 1 versus Indiana? He just bounced. He's coming right back in, but I'd say it's got to be low, guys. I'm gonna switch gears real quick. So I was actually at the foundation event, which was a really nice event. I recorded this. I was sitting right in the front row. You see Ronnie Stokes, Cardell Jones, Chris Holtman, and Ryan Day. Unfortunately, is obstructed by the podium, but this was a really good talk. I'm going to put this up on BuckeyesScoop.com as a separate video if you guys want to watch it, the whole roundtable. But these guys are talking portal, they're talking transfer, they're talking NIL. How do you navigate it? Again, it's a whole new world, and again, there's a lot of landmines in this thing. A lot of these kids are getting lied to in the NIL space, especially when they're getting induced as high school kids. They get these fake contracts that have fake numbers that they'll never see, and there's a lot of hurt feelings and broken feelings. But just it's kind of the new wave of doing it. But it was a really nice event. Like I was really proud of the foundation. Again, I have no allegiance to any of these events, but Rick Reichert's one of my best friends, and he had a table and he asked me to go, and I was like, sure, I'd love to. And it was great seeing a bunch of the really good players. A bunch of the coaches were there. I think the only coaches that weren't there were Jim Knowles and Brad Hartline. But Justin Fry was there. He's been a great guy for 15 years. Hang on, I got Nevada coming back in. You back?
It's funny. My phone's overheating. I'm not sure if the system processor, this Ecamm software, is lighting it up or whatever it is. But yeah, it nearly melted my phone.
Well, it's probably because we have so many likes and subscribes and so many comments in our chat right now. So you guys, if you want Nevada's phone to melt, keep chatting in the middle of this thing. Oh, we got a super chat just now. But I was just playing a video from the Foundation event. I kind of pivoted to that when your phone exploded. So D Sunny, I'm going to give this to you, Nevada. Is there a great player but mentally has trouble learning the playbook? Is there a way in which coaches give him an easy assignment or package? Do you want to try that, Nevada, or do you want me to try that one?
Well, you can try it first, and I'll clean up whoever you disrespect with the answer.
Okay, if I disrespect any former 1995 Buckeyes like I seem to always do. This is actually a great question, and I think that it really it depends on the position, honestly, because some positions I just think inherently are just easier to play. I think that cornerback is pretty easy. I think that running back is pretty easy. Because again, like, if you're a corner and you're playing man coverage, it's like, okay, you just run with the guy. Obviously, you gotta have great technique. Corner is extremely difficult to play, but assignment wise, it's not very hard. But in terms of technique and fundamentals, it's probably the hardest position on the field, other than like offensive tackle. Offensive line, I think it's some playbooks are easier. Like, I was stunned at how simple Urban Meyer's playbook was when I was learning it, as opposed to a lot of the NFL playbooks I dealt with. But I think that if you have a great player, it's on the coach to get him up to speed, and you have to figure out how to teach that guy how the playbook, how to teach him how to do it right. Urban Meyer was an absolute genius when it came to this. He brought in learning specialists that taught us as coaches. They clinicked us on how to figure out ways to connect with kids and really teach them the playbook in ways other than just handing them the playbook and saying, hey, go learn this. Hey, go do this. Hey, because that doesn't work. Like, because you can hand a kid like a textbook and say, okay, go learn all this, and then odds are he's probably not going to learn it. But so you got to figure out like creative ways. Like, we would play we had a checkerboard set up that would have 11 checkers on each side, and we'd have these guys use their motor skills to learn stuff. So again, it clicks for different people in different ways. And I think that, Urban had a great saying. It was one of my favorite things ever. There's no such thing as a dumb player, just dumb, then the F word, and then coaches. And again, that always would ring real clear with us when, he wouldn't say, oh, you can't say, oh, that player is bad or that player is dumb. There were no excuses like that around Urban. So that's why, and I liked that, because I was like, you know what? You're right. I mean, we have to figure out a way to get the guys to do it right and put it on film right and learn the playbook right. So it's one of those things where it's easy to write a guy off as dumb. And sometimes there are dumb players. And sometimes, like, you kick yourself in recruiting that you didn't do a deeper dive into, the cognitive intelligence of some of these guys. But, generally you recruit your own problems. So, like, I was a big fan of let's take, they don't have to be Copernicus, but they have to have a general level of intelligence where they can, on the fly change things as a center on the O-line, and they can make the calls, get the calls. Again, like, I never wanted to take a dumb player, because I think that it kills you when when you have that guy that just constantly can't get it right. I mean, you can keep coaching them as hard as you want, but you recruit your own problems in that regard in college football. So, and I think that, our guys, for the most part, are really sharp dudes, like, especially on the O-line. Like, I know Donnie Jackson and a bunch of these guys really well, and they're sharp guys. So that Paris Johnson is exceptionally intelligent. Luke Whippler, unbelievably intelligent. So you just got to recruit your own problems, or not recruit your own problems. So what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I think it's interesting because a lot of people don't know this, but Ohio State is, you talked about kind of the coaches and how they reach out to the players. Well, Ohio State asks the players to rate the coaches as well. They ask them to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, for 5 being the best in terms of how they're kind of connecting with the kids, how they're doing, how they're explaining the positions. And there's one coach this year almost uniformly got ones from the players. And now we're not going to discuss who that coach is, because we'll save that for the subscribers at BuckeyeScoop.com. But yeah, that's it. Kind of goes both ways. They're looking at the kids to see who can acclimate and learn the playbook and really assimilate into what Ohio State's trying to do. And the kids are looking for who are the best communicators and who can do it. And there's one coach seems to be really struggling making those things kind of connect. So I found that very, very interesting when I found out that particular piece of news.
Yeah, I when I heard that, I about fell out of my chair. But it's something that, again, like, Ryan Day wants feedback. How are the coaches doing? Like, they want internal feedback, and not everyone's going to get all 5s, and not everybody's going to get all 3s or 4s or whatever. But it'd be startling if a coach got all 1s, and there was a coach on staff that did get all 1s. And so, if I'm that coach, like, I'm not buying a house. I know that, because, like, Ryan Day's been very apt to fire coaches, and I think that some of these guys have earned it. They've earned what they've gotten, and it's kind of is what it is. But yeah, we're gonna I'll show one last thing. They did this neat little they did this auction. This was crazy. So they were auctioning off items at this, and it was like, dinner with Ryan.
do you have video of the fat guys going to the buffet or anything else like that, or was it like a
No,
sit down there when they served that?
they didn't. We didn't have any food. There wasn't any food. There was no buffet. I mean, there was booze,
What?
but like, I mean, I swear to God, there was no food. Swear to God, I was there and like, I was waiting for him to bring the food around.
Did you bring a sandwich or something like that?
I didn't bring anything. I was starving. I went to Town Hall afterwards and ate, and I couldn't wait to eat when I got there. Town Hall, proud sponsor of BuckeyeScoop.com. If you guys haven't been to Town Hall, it's the best restaurant in Columbus. But we all went to Town Hall and Mandrake afterwards. But yeah, there was no food, and this was a $10,000 table with no food. So again, they were trying to keep it as profitable as they could, and they did a good job of it. But Cam Babs up
No,
there.
Kirk, you didn't bring like a sandwich in your pocket
I
or something
brought
like that?
nothing. Dude, I've
Oh,
never gone to a banquet where you've paid for a table where there wasn't food. So it's like you don't show up
that's
to
great.
you don't go to a banquet and say, well, man, I better pack a ham sandwich while I'm at it. So, but are
Well,
they are.
I don't think you can call it a banquet without food. If there's no food, there's not a banquet.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's Evan Turner. Again, I'm gonna put all these videos up on our site. But it was interesting to see what some of this. I think dinner with Ryan Day went for like 15 grand or something, and like, I mean, God bless them.
Because that is food. That's why. So
Yeah, I
you'd have
know.
paid 15 grand, but at that point, you'd have paid.
I would have
15
paid another $5 for some food. I'm just saying. But it was a cool event. Like I said, we'll put it all up there. Again, it was a good night. Raised a bunch of money. I think that they're going to be doing a bunch more in the future. But yeah, I'm going to get some. We're going to break into our 5-star tackle now. We got Brandon Baker, who's a kid out of kind of your neck of the woods, Nevada. He's out at Mater Day. This is a kid. I mean, we're getting some momentum with this kid. Loves Justin Fry. Loves Ohio State. He's not glued to USC or some local school. So it was exciting. There's been some really good information. He's a 5-star tackle. There's not many of them out there, guys. So if we can get one of them, that'd be great. I'll toss his film on here in a second. But Nevada, what would it mean? Because we already have 4 offensive linemen committed to pull a rare 5-star tackle. Because we haven't had one in a hot minute. And again, it's we had a streak there for about 5 or 6 years when we were pulling 5-star tackles every year. But what would it mean to add one to this class? It's kind of the crown jewel of the offensive line group.
Well, it just you always talk about level of play and what's the level of play, and it doesn't get any higher than Mater Day. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Mater Day is kind of like the place to go if you're in Southern California. Obviously, parochial school, they can recruit, and they bring in kids from all over, and they play at an extremely high level. They play all the big boys, and they're always right there in the discussion for the state championship and national championship types of discussion. So pulling a kid like this would be so big, and that if a kid comes from Southern California to Ohio, wow, the dogs are going crazy.
You did it.
Kirk
I know my German Shepherd is getting after it right now. Hey,
you sound like Ramsey Bolton and the dogs or something like that.
That's what we do. That's what we do around here. Don't come to my house, man. My dog will eat you. We got a super chat. This is a great question. I'll let you start this one, Nevada. Appreciate you. I'm DeLuca 907. Any reason we haven't seen more portal movement? You can start with that, Nevada. Because I think we only have one guy in the portal right now, Jake Siebert, unless someone entered earlier today. But any thoughts on that?
I think it's happening. It's going to happen. I mean, they're having the tough discussions right now. They've got to move at least 4 kids to make the scholarship limit. I think it'll be more than that, but they're having those tough discussions right now. You'll start to see that. We don't want to speculate as to names of kids. I always find that kind of unfair to them, and things could change on that in a minute. But I think you'll start to see that stuff start trickling out. And for all those kids that have to leave Ohio State and go somewhere else, I wish them nothing but the best. They tried, for whatever reason, they weren't able to be a contributor here, and maybe they can go somewhere else and be a contributor. And as we've talked about a million times, if Joe Burrow hadn't done that, he'd be selling cars in Athens, Ohio right now. So God bless all the portal kids and all the transfer kids, and I hope they find a lot of success.
I completely agree. Again, this place, it's not for everybody. Sometimes you miss your break, you miss your time, or the coaches get changed. Like there's a million things that can happen to these kids that make them have to hit the portal and go elsewhere. And I just think that it's the Ohio State offer. Like when you're an Ohio kid, especially, is a double-edged sword, man, because it's awesome to go to Ohio State, but man, like if you don't play or you're not good enough to play, man, that's kind of like one of those things where you got to live with that for a while, and it does stink. You know, that was something that was always kind of right in the back of my head, and I used to talk to Pat Elfline about that all the time about how he was a kid that we beat Toledo and Pitt on, and no one was excited about Pat Elfline when he committed to Ohio State. But I told him, I was like, dude, just do your thing, don't change who you are, and just ball out, play hard, and everything else takes care of itself. Because you don't want to be the guy that gets the Ohio State offer and you never play, or you get beat out, or you stink and everybody hates you. Like there's a lot of that happens, and again, it's everybody wants to play at Ohio State, but playing at Ohio State ain't for everybody. And some of these kids that have to hit the portal, it kind of breaks their heart just because like they wanted to be Buckeyes their whole life. They dreamed of being Buckeyes and then become a Buckeye, and it didn't work out, and it's kind of like with these Twitter kids on Michigan and Ohio State that were going back and forth this week, Ian Moore, and then some of the kids that committed to Michigan that didn't have Ohio State offers, Hamilton and Ben Roebuck. And, again, a lot of those kids, they all dream of being Buckeyes. And the ones that don't get offered by Ohio State, but Michigan goes on them first, and then they end up committing to Michigan, they say, oh, well, I always wanted to go to Michigan. But it's just kind of a weird thing when you're an Ohio kid with the Ohio State offer, because it is the only school. There is no, we don't have a Michigan State dynamic. We don't have Miami, Florida State, Florida. There's like three good schools. Like we're the only school in Ohio that kids dream of going to. So that kind of changes the calculus a little bit. You know what? I am going to D Sonny. You're killing it with the questions today. This is one that Nevada was at. Nevada, you were at this game. Another super chat. Appreciate you guys today. If we beat Texas in 2005, do you think we would have beat USC and won the national championship? Thank you so much for the show. Nevada, I'll let you take that first. You were at the game. I played in the game. But what are your thoughts on that?
Wow. I mean, that 2005 USC team was pretty good. It's one of those things that I don't know. I mean, the 2005 Texas game was hard to get over because I honestly thought on that night we were better than them, and we should have won if not for just a few really unfortunate things that we don't need to rehash right now. But would have been a great game. It would have been a classic game. I'm not sure if the game would have been any better than the Texas USC game, which in my opinion is the greatest college football game ever played. So from that standpoint, it would have been interesting. But boy, Vince Young was a force of nature in college football. Amazing they never really panned out at the next level of the NFL. And the 2005 game, it's always in my top 5 of most electric atmospheres at the shoe. That was really something for you to be as a player. Just as a fan, I left completely exhausted. I've never heard 104,000 people file out of that place as quiet as they did that day. That was as quiet as any game ever because we all felt like we had victory just snatched at the last minute. So I can't imagine what it felt like to be a player in that one.
Yeah, I mean, it just was absolutely deflating because we led for the majority of the game, but the problem was we kicked 5 field goals. Like you can't play a team like that and kick 5 field goals when you're down in the red zone. Like and then we missed the last field goal, which would have like clinched it and put it out of reach. So, but again, that's not on anybody other than us. We didn't perform. I think that I'm never critical of Jim Tressel because he's like he's one of my heroes, one of the greatest guys that have been around. But like I think that we should have picked the quarterback and stuck with him. Probably should have stuck with Troy and just ran with Troy because we didn't move the ball initially. Then we put Troy and we moved the ball. We scored. Obviously, Justin kind of got screwed because Ryan Hamby dropped that pass to him right in the chest, which everybody remembers. So, again, it was just like you can't have when you're playing a team that good and the razor's edge to win or lose is so thin. You can't make stupid plays like that. You can't drop a touchdown. You can't give up a pass to Lima Swede. You can't miss a field goal. You can't not score in the red zone. You got to score touchdowns in the red zone. So, again, like we had Santonio Holmes wide open. I can still see the play because it was right in front of me on a slant. He cooked the defensive back, and if Justin gives him a throw, it's a 45-yard touchdown to win the game and put it out of reach. And then we missed the throw. Then we kicked the field goal. We missed the field goal, and then Texas goes down and scores. And and even still, it was a 1-point game, and we had a chance to come back and win. And we go out there and we put Justin out there, and Justin fumbles. He goes to scramble and he fumbles the ball. So it's like, you can't take off and run when the pocket is good, and then you fumble the ball and give them the ball back. Because we actually had enough time to go back and win that game. I mean, we were probably 65 yards away. We could have kicked the field goal and won the game, but we fumbled. So again, that's just and it's not his fault, but it's just like we can't make mistakes like that when it's a huge game like that, and it's a tough one. And again, I'd say that about any game where you're playing a team with equal talent. Like when you're playing Georgia or when you're playing against Georgia, like this past year, you can't miss field goals, you can't screw up fake punts, you can't. There's all these little dumb things that cause you to lose against a team with equal. Now against Indiana and 10 out of the 12 Big Ten teams that we can just roll the helmets out and beat, it doesn't matter what you do. But when you play Michigan, it's a razor's edge. If you play Texas, you play some of these teams that are really good. There's no margin for error. And when you do silly things and dumb things and turn it over, like my last game I ever played at Ohio State was the LSU game, and we had 5 personal fouls. We had a field goal get blocked. I mean, it was just like a clown car. It was like we rolled out of the clown car and did all this dumb stuff. And you're never going to beat a good team doing that kind of stuff. So, but again, it's a learning experience, and it just teaches you that when you want to go beat those teams, you got to be tight. I think that's something that Ryan Day and this team's finding out. Like you want to go beat Georgia down in Georgia, you can't make any mistakes. And we made way too many to beat a team like that, and we still almost beat them because they weren't really as good as everybody made them out to be. They kind of are what Nevada, Buck, and I predicted and thought they were. Is exactly how the game played out. We studied the film, we watched them. I liked our matchups, especially in the trenches, because I thought that we had Donnie and we had our 2 really good tackles and Luke Whippler, and I thought we could block them, and I thought we could throw it on them. So we had a chance. We just made too many dumb mistakes. Like notably, when you biff 2, fake punts in 2 straight games, I don't even know how that's humanly possible, but we did it. And they were perfect looks for the fakes we were going to run, and we screwed them up. So again, that's on us, and that starts at the top. At Ohio State, they got to figure out how to get these guys to execute and perform when the pressure's on. We got another one. D. Sonny, you're killing it today. If the rosters are the same and you're taking one head coach to coach the championship game, are you taking Tress or Urban? Nevada, you go first.
Urban.
Yeah, I'm taking Urban. I mean, I've been on both sides with Urban. I've been with him and against him, and for one game when it's all equal, nobody can motivate like that guy. I mean, he is a absolute monster. He's a guy that knows how to get the team going. He pulls out all the stops. I've seen it in action. And again, like I think that the hardest part about Urban is that he only has a short shelf life wherever he goes because he's so intense, and like that pursuit of perfection is something he can't turn off, and it just wears him down to a little nub. And he can't say, like, Tress was a lot more even kill. Like Tress was a program builder. He's a guy that could sustain just because he didn't have the wild highs and the wild lows that Urban did. Urban was he'd go nuclear all the time, and that's hard. You can only do that so many times before the reactor blows. But yeah, I take Urban just because, like I said, I've been on the other side of Urban, and we got smacked really hard by him. But he's won 3 national titles in an era that was hard to do. He dominated the SEC. I mean, it's the proof's in the pudding with him. You got 3 rings at the highest level. Like you can't not take that. You can't not pick Urban Meyer.
But that's why I didn't understand, and I know this isn't the germane to the question, but when there was a lot of people that kind of expressed the sentiment that thank goodness Meyer's gone and thank goodness Day's the head coach, and I'm like, why would anybody be happy that Urban Meyer is no longer our head coach, no matter who's waiting in the wings? And I mean, Meyer to me, it's Saban and Meyer, and then everybody else in college football. And that's kind of rare air when you're talking about that. And the fact that he was like an Ohio kid who went to Ohio State and coached at Ohio State, and we had him back as our head coach. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. And I'm sad to this day that it had to end because 7-0 against Michigan, that never gets old. And watching the Weasels get all excited now that we've lost the last couple. I long for those days when Meyer just owned all the territory between the ears with those guys. So God bless you, Coach Meyer. Wish you were back, and maybe who knows? Maybe if Dave moves on, maybe Meyer comes back for another rodeo.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, man. But like, you're right, because I mean, he built that program. Most of the guys kept their jobs from just the internal, like the operations guy, Pantoni, you got Mickey Marotti. So it's hard to build that infrastructure and have that infrastructure in where you need it. And that's something that Urban, he brought and he handed the keys to Ryan, and Ryan basically had the program. Obviously made a bunch of changes, got rid of Shiano and Bill Davis and some guys to make it his own program. But I think that, what Urban did, going 7-0, winning a national championship, beating Alabama, like you look at the whole kind of treasure trove of memories that you have from his era of Ohio State football, and it rivals Jim Tressel's. I mean, Jim Tressel beat the Miami Hurricanes, probably the greatest win in Ohio State history because it was so unforeseen. So many people thought we were going to be, huge blowout, 21-point loss, whatever. And to beat Miami with their arrogance in the desert, this chippy little Ohio State team going out there and whooping on them, making the entire state of Ohio proud, I thought it was a seminal moment. And then Tress, went 10-1 against Michigan. His only loss was actually the next year in 2003, and then after that he ripped off 8 or 9 in a row. I count the 2010 game. I know that those all got taken off the record book, but I count it because I got a ring from it, so whatever. And I have gold pants from it, so those can't get deleted. But yeah, I love Urban. I think he did a fantastic job, and I think that he needs a little bit more credit than he gets. This is a great question. I get this a lot. The 1 versus 2 game, we were wire to wire number 1 in 2006, and we won an emotional game over number 2 Michigan. Do you think we could use a game to get straight before the title game? I think a Big Ten championship game probably would have helped us because we would have been a little sharper. I think that the layoff was exceptionally long. It was like 45 days or whatever it was. But I honestly think that, if I could go back and do it again, if I could go back in time and walk into Jim Tressel's office in December of 06, I'd say, look, stay at the Woody Hayes until 4 days before the game and beat the tar out of these kids, beat them down, beat them down hard. Urban was really good about that. I mean, if any of these kids ever thought they had some sort of an ego or some sort of inflated opinion, Urban would stamp that out like an elephant. And that's something that, we went out there for 2 weeks. We were out there in Arizona, which is way too long. It's, it's just like, because you practice for 3 hours a day and you meet for 2 hours a day, it's 5 hours. So then the rest of the day, you're just kind of hanging out, doing nothing. And, guys get bored. And I'd have much rather been at my apartment in Columbus than in some hotel room, just because, what do? You go walk around at the mall and you do a bunch of bullcrap stuff. And it's better just to be at the Woody where you've got all your training stuff. You got a good gym. We didn't have good gyms out in Arizona, which again, that doesn't matter. None of this matters. None of this is like we would have beat Florida if we had a nicer weight room or any of that stuff. But I just think that when you're in the facility, now you look at how the teams do it now, they don't head out until a day or two before the game, maybe 3-4 days before the game, because they see the benefit of being in the facility, being in the routine. The players are in the routine. They're at their own apartments. They can go to Chipotle or eat whatever they want, play video games, whatever. They're just kind of in their normal mode, as opposed to yanking them out for 2 weeks and having them try to do it a whole different way. But that's a fantastic question. So you guys keep these questions coming. These have been great. I think that, the defense has to get back to being nasty again. I think that these guys have a big chip on their shoulder. I saw a lot of the guys at the D Foundation event. I saw Jack Sawyer. I saw Mike Hall. These guys want to get after it now. They don't really have any roadblocks in front of them now, so they can actually go. There's going to be less of a rotation, I think. You're going to be relying on more of the big dogs. So I'm all for it. I think that, these guys are motivated after giving up 90 points in the last 2 games or whatever. So it'll be very interesting to see what these guys do going forward. Yeah, and I agree. I thought that we could have ran the ball more versus Florida. Now, we only played like 40 plays of offense, so it wasn't like we had a ton of opportunities. But, I didn't know that Ted was hurt. I didn't know Ted was hurt until like halftime. So I was asking him, I was like, why aren't you going into the game? And he was in his full gear, had his cleats on, had his helmet on, and he wasn't playing. So it was weird. But yeah, I thought when we ran the ball, we did really well against Florida. But again, we just made too many mistakes. Again, the game, if I break this tape down, which I think I'm going to at some point, I'm going to break down the entire Florida game for you guys so you guys can see what really went wrong. And it's, I don't want to say it was close, but it was closer than 41-14. But, we just made too many dumb penalties, dumb personal fouls. We didn't pick up a 4th and 1 that we went for on our own side of the field. I think that Florida's offense was fantastic that night, just in terms of kind of the misdirection and using the whole horizontal spread attack that we were never good against spread offenses back in the day. We were really good against traditional offenses, but spreads like Illinois and some of those schools they were tougher to go against for us. It was a newer thing. And, when we went against pro style teams, we would absolutely just destroy them. But when we went against some of these spread teams, they weren't good. And Urban's Florida team with Percy Harvin and Bubba Caldwell and those guys, like they were the ultimate spread at that time. And they did it with a very menial offensive line. Like none of their offensive linemen on that team got drafted. None of them had significant NFL teams, and they buzzed through a pretty good defensive front that had James Laurinaitis and Quinn Pitcock and Jay Richardson, a bunch of guys that played a long time or played at least decently or were drafted mid or high round in the NFL, and that offense gave us a lot of problems. Nevada, would you have run the ball more versus Florida in '06?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, yeah. I mean, look, everything in hindsight. It was just one of those nights. I mean, sometimes things just go wrong. I mean, it started with not a lot of people know this, but the night before the game, Gonzo goes down to In-N-Out Burger and finds Troy Smith with his girlfriend eating In-N-Out Burger.
You're such an idiot.
And they started there was a fight at the In-N-Out Burger between Gonzo
and God.
And it just. I mean, it was downhill. There was no chance. We had no chance at that point. You know what I'm saying?
And just so you guys know, that's completely made up. That's one of the greatest urban legends ever time is that Anthony Gonzalez, like Troy Smith, like hooked up with Anthony Gonzalez's girlfriend the night before the game. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life because Gonzo didn't have like a steady girlfriend.
No, but Kirk, I managed to work the In-N-Out Burger story and the Gonzo's Troy Smith's girlfriend story, all the same story.
That's deep. That's good, man. You got all of the false narratives like kind of put behind us. Like the In-N-Out Burger one was great too. Because like, oh, these guys were just eating In-N-Out Burger. It's like, guys, you should see what we eat in Columbus. We eat McDonald's every day because we're poor. We don't have money. Like so, we're eating it. If you wanted to meet all the Ohio State football players before practice, you should have went to the McDonald's that used to be right on Old Tangent River Road, 1 minute from the Woody Hayes. You would have saw 50 cars that were all from Ohio State football in line because that's where we went every day because we didn't have any money. So we'd go get a double cheeseburger and a Coke for $2 or whatever, or 3 double cheeseburgers and go off to practice. We didn't have meals. We didn't have NIL money. So we were eating trash back home too.
But this is the greatest thing though. It's like, Kurt, now we've moved on from these Ohio State football players eating the $1.99 value menu to let's raise money to get to get CJ Stroud a second Bentley. I mean, this is the beautiful evolution of Ohio State football right now. You know what I'm saying?
It is. I mean, these kids they got to eat. Like this was great. So they bring Jelani. Jelani had this chain on. Jelani Thurman, and I was like, holy cow! His NIL check cleared. Obviously, it was absolutely amazing because he comes up with the freshman and he's got like the glitter audience. So Jelani's right in the middle. You see the big chain. And again, God bless him because, that chain probably cost more than my first house. But, these guys are up there rocking. So this is dinner with all the freshmen. And again, Cardell Tate's there, Jermaine Matthews. But it was just amazing. I was like, these guys are dressed to the nines. They're in like Gucci tennis shoes that cost like $600 and that kind of thing. I was like, yes, this is a way different ball of wax than from when I was like driving my 97 Honda Accord around as a first team All-American. So, but I was, yeah, you're right. Now they get to get a second Bentley, which is great. Thank you for NIL.
You should to that foundation event. You should have worn like the big clock, like Flavor Flav or something like that. And had that around your neck. I honestly think that would have been like one of the great statements. The little Buckeye Scoop clock. You kind of represent. You kind of do a little Flavor Flav thing. People would have taken notice, man.
Oh, I had this on. I had my Buckeye Scoop on when I was at the event. And shout out to a lot of you guys. There are a ton of people that came up to me and said, Kirk, we love the Scoop. We love the podcast. So that was sweet. Like, I mean, some of you guys are lurkers, not super active on the board, but you read everything. You love watching everything. So all you guys that came up and said what's up to me, I appreciate that. That was great because we had a blast. But yeah, I don't know. I really, I think it's going to be interesting to see how these different, we've got 3 collectives now. We've got one that's for-profit and 2 nonprofits. So I don't know. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how these things eventually die or come together or whatever. Because, there's no point in having 3. But, they just keep adding these things, which is, it's always going to be hilarious to me. Well, I think we can wrap this thing up. Nevada, you got any final thoughts? Spring ball, portal tackles, kind of the whole 9. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that we've talked about over the last couple of days. But any final thoughts? Any final questions? Again,
yeah, I think in summary, be excited about the Lorenzo Styles thing. nice depth piece can help us. Expect to see more guys on Ohio State heading out. Don't expect any big tackles coming in. I mean, if something comes in over the transom and it's a fantastic tackle, then I'll be the first one to stand and applaud. But I wouldn't be expecting that. I think Ohio State's going to go with what they have, and I think they're going to be just fine. And no, it's going to be a fun it's going to be a fun time here this summer with Ohio State. And if you're an Ohio State fan and you go to one of these collective dinners next time, we're going to set up a thing where we're going to have sandwiches, and Kirk will have the sandwiches. So if you're hungry,
Yes.
just go see Kirk, and he will give you a sandwich. I want things so you don't have to go hungry. One of the nice accoutrement of being a member of BuckeyeScoop.com.
Well, yeah, we'll have a Scoop food truck parked outside. It'll be fantastic. I'm sure everybody will be ready to rock and eat some Scoop subs. We'll call them. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the only way a major tackle could hit the portal is if they are just fishing for deals, because these guys all have agents now. Like I was talking to some of the players, and they're represented by Drew Rosenhaus, Athletes First. Like right now, they're sophomores in college, and they've got the biggest agencies in the world representing them, looking for deals. And those agents, they also represent the coaches. So if you want to back channel to USC, like again, Barry Alexander, he had 2 sacks in the national championship game for Georgia, literally is visiting USC. USC's probably going to give him a fortune to come there. That's the only way I could see it, is if it's a straight up cash deal where, a good player is like, you know what, I'm going to go hit the market and see what kind of money I can make. Because again, I don't know why, if you're a defensive tackle, you'd ever leave Georgia, but it's going to happen. This kid hit the portal, would have been the starter this year. But I don't see that many tackles that are in that situation that would be just dying to be an open bid. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take something crazy like that. And Nevada, do you ever think there's going to be a day where a superstar college player who has a year left would just enter the portal and just hit the auction block essentially?
Oh, I think it's inevitable. Not a
Yeah.
question of if, just when. And we've talked about package deals or entire offensive lines going or whatever. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't look forward to it, but it's kind of just the new era of football, and Ohio State's trying to combat that by the good news is no matter how much money you can make in NIL, the big money is always going to be at the next level at the NFL, and as long as Ohio State can sell development and make your fortune at the next level, go to the place that's going to develop you best. Ohio State always do well, and that's all that matters to me. So I think we'll be fine. But college football is the changing.
Yeah, I totally agree, because like I look at, if CJ and Jackson Smith hit the portal last year after that Rose Bowl and they go to some dumpster fire like Texas A&M, like how much would they have hurt their draft stock by leaving and going to a program that was clearly a toxic wasteland getting ready to explode? Like if he would have been working with Jimbo Fisher and that offensive coordinator who they put a bullet in his head, they fired him, like what would that have done to a player like CJ Stroud stock, as opposed to coming back to Ohio State, having a top 5 Heisman type year, huge numbers, and then he ends up being, a top 5 pick in the draft. We got so we're keeping the super chats, man. We're trying to get going. Next commits that we are going to land. That is a great question. I think that there's some on the defensive side that look like they're about to pop. I mean, obviously we got Peyton Pierce. I think James Laurinaitis is killing it. But it's going to be interesting as we come through camp. I can't think of any offensive guys, because I feel like we're pretty good on offense right now in terms of, we got 4 offensive line, we got 2 running backs, we got tight end. I mean, Jamarian Wilcox from Glenville could go any day now. That's one that, if he committed during this podcast, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Bryce West, we've got a couple corners in Ohio that are both going to come here, so they could pop any day. I imagine a lot of these guys will pop before camp season, because I think that there's a huge benefit to committing early, just because if you're with a good ethical program and you're from a good high school and you tear your Achilles tendon, you can never play football again, or you blow your knee out at some camp, like, somewhere like Ohio State will honor your scholarship and they'll medical you or they'll work with you and see if you can come back. But if you're uncommitted and you're kind of a 3-4 starish type guy, you're kind of playing with fire when you go out there and you're not committed to somewhere. So, but yeah, Nevada, you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm sure with camp season coming in 2 months, we'll see the next slew of commitments, but any thoughts on who our next commitments could be?
Yeah, gun to my head, I'd say the Glenville kids. I think that's probably going to happen. And as you mentioned, you want to secure your spots, and also with NIL, you want to kind of get your NIL deals kind of locked down as well. So there are some unintended consequences of signing early, and you can line up NIL stuff in advance, and that can be your benefit as well. So, but I think you'll see more and more kids not. You look now this year, very few kids stretched it out to the last minute, and that used to be kind of a regular occurrence. Not happening as much anymore. So I think the Glenville kids' timeline could moved up, and that'll be beneficial for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think another reason to get committed is you can start working NIL deals out with places like the Foundation or some of the local shops and car dealers. Like I think that there's a lot of companies around here that would love to help these kids out. And honestly, I think the onus falls on the kids. Like the kids right now, they don't have a lot of stuff to do. I'd be hitting up some of these local companies. I'd be going in there, introducing myself, suit and tie, and say, "Hey, I'd love to partner with you. What can I do?" Because I mean, it's just kind of like a nice way to make some extra cash for not really doing a lot of work and partnering with some big businesses. Dave, this is a great question. I want to play Tigra at guard this year. The biggest thing with me is I just don't know if we really know who's going to be where. Again, I've said 6 million times that Donnie Jackson should be our left tackle. Justin Fry at this moment feels differently, and again, that's fine. I mean, it's his opinion, but I like to build from the left tackle inward. I like to start at the two edges with the two tackles, and then try to figure out the interior guys. I put Matt Jones at center, let him do it there because I think he's a guy that he deserves it. I think being a center is kind of like a feather in the cap type deal because you're the guy that's running the whole show in the O line room. But I don't know. I think Tigra, he hung in there at tackle. Like he wasn't a complete turnstile like a lot of people thought. And Tigra's lost a lot of weight. He looks great. He's physically in much better shape than he was a year ago. So, I think if you can play tackle, stay at tackle. But I think that after I watched the spring game about 6 times and really broke it down, Luke Montgomery is a guy that we're going to have to really pay attention to going into camp. And I think that George Fitzpatrick is a guy that we have to pay attention to. I think those guys are both plus athletes out at tackle. I think they both have very nice vertical sets. I think that they can pass block. And in Ryan Day's offense, man, pass blocking is 99% of the game. If you can pass block, you can play for Ryan just because we don't really run the ball that much anymore. And, the runs we do are these stretch runs that don't require, massive physicality. I think it's something that, when you've got, smaller, more athletic guys like Luke instead of DeJuan, then, that what we do is good for what we do. And those guys both played well. And Luke didn't look out of place at all when he was playing right tackle. Granted, he was playing against the threes, and he wasn't playing Jack Sawyer and JT2 and Malal, but I think that those are guys you're gonna have to pay attention to going forward. So, but yeah, like I said, the O line is going to be the thing that I'll pay more attention to over the next 4 months than probably any position, just because it'll be fascinating to see what we end up doing at left tackle. I thought Josh Fryer was okay, but I think that he's much more comfortable at right tackle, which is just natural. I think that if you put Donnie and Josh, then you have two upper tier Big Ten tackles out there right away, and then you can figure out who to put at guard. Put Matt Jones and Enoch or whoever, or if you find a transfer portal guard, you slide him in at guard and put Donnie at tackle, and then away you go. But I think it's easier to find guards than it is tackles. I mean, we're finding that out real quick right now because premium tackles that can pass protect are very hard to find. And when you have guys like Donnie Jackson who have the feet to play left tackle, then I think you just got to run with it. So we will we'll wrap this thing. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap this up? This was a great hour. We appreciate you guys as always. But Nevada, any final thoughts?
No, just I'll echo your words on George Fitzpatrick. I think Fitzpatrick is a potential NFL first round draft pick. I think he's that good, and I think he's going to need some time. And I'm not worried about the offensive line. I said this on the board literally for 20 years now. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Every single season, I hear the complaints about the offensive line, the concerns about the offensive line, the fretting, and all that I ask is, can we at least have one bad offensive line, and then we can all complain about it together? Just one year that we have a bad offensive line. Do not read too much into the spring game. If you don't do the spring game, we actually ran to the ball to great effect because the defense was teeing off against the pass. And so when you do that, what happens? You look bad against the pass on the edges. And when the few times we ran the ball right up the defense's nose. So it's like, don't read too much into it. It's going to be fine. Things are going to get worked out, and everything going to be okay. Rant over. and my phone's about to melt.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that 'cause I talked to some offensive coaches at the Foundation event, and they hate the spring game. It's so vanilla. Again, it's like if you're a pitcher and all you can do is throw fastballs the whole game, and then you get tuned up and you give up 10 home runs, and they're like, "Oh, you suck as a pitcher. You're terrible." That's kind of what it's like being on offense in the spring game when you can only run so many plays. And even defensively, they have to be vanilla. So it's not even like real football at all. So, you're never going to see a vanilla defense versus a vanilla offense ever, no matter if we're playing Youngstown State or Alabama. Like, you're always going to be running your offense, not the garbled stuff that we have to do in the spring game. So, well, I am going to wrap this up. Again, thank you, Nevada. Fantastic show today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Daniel Henry, I know you're a little late, but you're still my dude. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Dave. All the regulars that are on here, we appreciate you guys. We love doing these shows. You guys really help by giving us such great questions. So thank you guys. We love doing this. If you guys enjoy the show, BuckeyeScoop.com is your new home. We broke the Lorenzo Styles Jr. News yesterday. That was big time news. We got a lot of really good stuff going on right now. Bill Green has been killing it on the recruiting thing. So, again, if you guys want the inside scoop as to what is going on Ohio State football, BuckeyeScoop.com is your new home. If you want the best community that follows Ohio State football, Buckeye Scoop is your home. We appreciate you guys so much. If you guys enjoy this content, leave us a like, click subscribe, and shout out where you're from in the comments. I love when you guys do that. I love seeing where you guys are watching from. Again, it always amazes me. We have people in Europe, Japan, Canton, Ohio, Naples, Florida, California. Like, I just love seeing kind of how this thing is spreading. It's been really cool to interact with you guys, and you guys make the show, not me in Nevada. You guys carry the show. We love doing this with you guys. Love all the comments too. So any comments you have about anything, write them. I read them. I respond to them. I love the feedback. So thank you guys as always. So hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. It's been a fantastic day, a fantastic show. I'm about to jump on BuckeyeScoop.com. So if you want to keep the party going, join BuckeyeScoop.com because we are killing it right now. And it is a blast to be part of our community. You never know who's on next. We have some really high-level Ohio State people that read our stuff every day, interact on the board. Again, it's always so grateful and so thankful for all of the fun stuff that we do on BuckeyeScoop.com. So thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. You guys are the best. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. Go Bucks.